A black man helps a lost child find his mother, unaware that she is a CEO. Imagine this. A man arrives in the city with nothing but hope in his heart and a determination to change his life. He's here for one reason: to find a job that will help him take care of his aging mother. But as fate would often have it, life throws unexpected challenges our way. For Jamal, a 36-year-old black man from a small southern town, what started as an ordinary day turned into something far greater than he could ever imagine. Little did he know that saving a lost child from danger would lead him not only to reconnect a family, but also set the stage for his own transformation. This is the story of how one act of kindness can ripple through lives in ways no one sees coming. Jamal wasn't someone who believed in luck. Life had taught him early on that you had to fight for everything you got. Growing up in a quiet little town where opportunities were scarce, he learned to work hard and make do with what little he had. His days were filled with odd jobs, construction, work, warehouse shifts, janitorial duties, anything that could put food on the table. But lately, things back home weren't going well. Work dried up, bills piled high, and his mother's health was declining. The pension she received barely covered her medication, let alone their basic needs. So, after months of sleepless nights and weighing impossible choices, Jamal made the toughest decision of his life. He left home to try his luck in New York City. It wasn't just a move. It was a leap of faith, a chance to build something better for himself and the woman who raised him. The city hit him like a wave the moment he stepped off the bus. Loud, fast, overwhelming. It was nothing like the calm streets of his hometown. Yet amidst the chaos, Jamal felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. He had secured an interview at a major construction site, a place that promised stability, benefits, and most importantly, a steady paycheck. Not a dream job by any means, but a start. He spent his last few dollars on a crisp new button-down shirt, determined to look presentable and professional. As he walked through the crowded streets, rehearsing what he'd say during the interview, he kept reminding himself of why he was there. "I'm hardworking, I learn fast, I don't complain, just give me a chance." Those words echoed in his mind, fueling his resolve. Everything depended on this one shot, but sometimes destiny has other plans. On his way to the interview, something caught Jamal's attention. A young boy standing alone near a fast food restaurant across from the construction site. At first glance, the boy looked out of place, dressed neatly in a navy jacket and khaki pants. He seemed too clean-cut to be wandering the busy sidewalks of the city. Dust clung to his sleeves, and there was a smudge on his cheek, like he'd fallen and gotten back up without brushing himself off. His wide brown eyes darted anxiously around the crowd, searching for someone, or waiting for someone to find him. Jamal slowed down, his gut twisting with unease. A kid this young shouldn't be standing here alone. But then he shook his head, reminding himself of the ticking clock. He couldn't afford distractions today. This was his one chance to turn things around. Just as Jamal forced himself to keep moving, a sharp metallic clang rang out. His head snapped toward the sound, just in time to see disaster unfolding. A flatbed truck pulling into the construction site had its cargo improperly secured. One long wooden beam teetered dangerously over the edge before slipping free, plummeting straight toward the boy. Without thinking, Jamal's body reacted faster than his mind could process. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he lunged forward, yelling, "Hey, watch out!" The boy froze, his terrified gaze locked onto the falling beam. In the nick of time, Jamal grabbed him by the shoulders and yanked him backward. the beam slammed into the pavement inches away, sending a cloud of dust and splinters into the air. Jamal's shirt sleeve snagged on the rough wood, tearing from the elbow down. His only good shirt, the one meant to impress at his interview, was ruined. But in that moment, none of that mattered. As the dust settled, Jamal found himself staring into the wide, frightened eyes of the boy clutching his torn sleeve. The child's chest rose and fell in quick, uneven breaths, his small hands gripping the fabric as if letting go meant losing the last thread of safety in a world that had suddenly become terrifying. Jamal steadied his own breathing, forcing his racing heart to slow. "Hey," he said softly, keeping his voice even. "You okay, kid?" The boy didn't answer right away. His fingers twitched against the torn fabric, hesitating as if realizing he was holding on to a stranger. Finally, he gave the tiniest nod. Jamal studied him for a second longer. The kid was shaken, but aside from the dust coating his jacket, he didn't look hurt. That was the important part. But something still didn't feel right. Why was he out here alone? Glancing around, Jamal noticed the usual rush of people passing by, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. No frantic parent pushed through the crowd. No voice called out for the boy. Frowning, Jamal crouched down to eye level. "Where's your mom, little man?" he asked gently but firmly. At the mention of his mother, the boy's expression shifted. His lips parted slightly, his eyes flicking toward the street and then quickly dropping to his shoes. He didn't answer, instead squeezing his hands into tight fists at his sides, trying to make himself smaller. That reaction told Jamal everything he needed to know. This wasn't just a case of a kid wandering off. Something bigger was wrong. Jamal exhaled slowly, glancing at his watch. His interview should have already started. He had promised his mother he wouldn't waste this opportunity. Yet, as he looked at the boy standing in front of him, lost, scared, and alone, he knew walking away wasn't an option. Taking the boy by the hand, he led him to the fast food restaurant nearby, buying him a meal and coaxing him to eat. Slowly, piece by piece, the story came together. The boy's name was Liam. His mother worked at the construction site, and he had been left in the care of a driver who abandoned him. Now, Liam was lost in a city too big for him to navigate alone. Determined to reunite the child with his mother, Jamal decided they would go to the site together. What neither of them realized, however, was that this decision would change both their lives forever. When they arrived at the construction site, Jamal braced himself for skepticism. Late, underdressed, and dragging along a child, he knew he didn't exactly fit the image of an ideal candidate. Still, he approached the security guard with confidence, explaining the situation. Before the guard could dismiss them, Liam spoke up. "My mom works here," he said firmly, gripping the fence. "She's wearing a blue jacket." The guard hesitated, studying them closely, before finally calling it in over his radio. Minutes passed, tense and uncertain, until a voice cut through the air like a bullet. "Liam!" The boy spun around, bolting toward a tall, commanding figure, pushing through the crowd. A woman in a crisp blue jacket, her face etched with panic and relief. As Jamal watched Liam crash into her arms, he realized something shocking. This wasn't just any employee. She was Olivia Carter, the CEO of the company, and now she was staring directly at him, her sharp eyes assessing every detail. What happens next will leave you questioning whether fate truly exists, or if some moments are simply meant to be. Stay tuned to find out how Jamal's selfless act leads to an offer he never saw coming and sets the stage for a journey neither he nor Olivia could have anticipated, Olivia Carter wasn't just any CEO. She was a force to be reckoned with. A woman who had clawed her way to the top of an industry dominated by men, breaking barriers and shattering expectations along the way. But even someone as strong and capable as Olivia couldn't escape the weight of guilt that came crashing down on her when she saw Liam standing there, safe but shaken, clinging to her like he'd never let go. As she held him close, running, her fingers through his dusty hair, her mind raced back to earlier that morning. She had kissed him goodbye before leaving for work, promising to take him to the park after her meeting ended. "Stay in the car with Mark," she had said firmly, trusting the driver implicitly. It wasn't the first time she'd left Liam under someone else's care. Juggling motherhood and leadership meant making compromises. But this time, it had gone horribly wrong. As Olivia listened to Liam explain what happened, the driver abandoning him, the fear of being alone in the car, and finally stepping out into the chaos of the city, her chest tightened with a mix of anger and self-reproach. Who did Mark think he was, leaving her child unattended? How could she have trusted him so blindly? Her knuckles whitened as she clenched her fists, not noticing the curious glances from workers around them. For all her authority and success, Olivia knew one truth too well. No matter how high you climbed, failing your family made everything else feel hollow. And now, here stood Jamal, a man she didn't know, whose torn sleeve and weary expression told its own story. He hadn't walked away. He hadn't ignored the boy, standing lost and vulnerable. Instead, he had acted without hesitation, risking his own chance at stability to ensure Liam's safety. Jamal watched silently as Olivia processed everything, her sharp eyes occasionally flicking toward him. He could see the storm brewing behind her composed exterior. Anger, relief, gratitude, maybe even regret. Whatever it wasn't his business. All he wanted was to slip away quietly, knowing Liam was safe. Yet something about the way Olivia studied him kept him rooted to the spot. "You stayed with him," she said finally, her tone measured, but probing. Jamal nodded again, unsure where this was headed. "Yeah, got him something to eat. Figured finding his mom was the next step." His voice was calm, almost dismissive, as if saving a stranger's child were nothing extraordinary. But Olivia didn't miss the slight hitch in his words, or the way his hands twitched slightly at his sides, betraying nerves beneath his stoic demeanor. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the construction site faded into the background as Olivia weighed her options. On one hand, she owed this man more than she could ever repay. On the other, hiring someone based solely on their actions today felt reckless, even impulsive. Still, as she looked at Jamal, his worn-out shoes, his tired eyes, the determination etched into every line of his face, she saw qualities she valued most in people: integrity, resilience, and a willingness to do what was right, regardless of personal cost. These were traits money couldn't buy, degrees couldn't guarantee. They were earned through life's hardest lessons, forged in moments of struggle and sacrifice. Olivia straightened her posture, her decision crystallizing. "You had an interview today," she stated flatly, though it wasn't really a question. Jamal hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, guess I missed it." Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for a split second, Jamal thought she might apologize or offer some vague consolation. Instead, she surprised him and everyone within earshot by saying, "Take it." Jamal blinked, certain he'd misheard. "What?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Olivia met his gaze head-on, unwavering. "The job. You want it. It's yours." Around them, Whispers rippled through the crowd of workers, but Olivia ignored them. This wasn't about charity or pity. It was about recognizing potential when she saw it. "I need people like you," she continued, her voice steady and commanding. "People who don't hesitate to step up when something needs to be done. People who don't turn away because it's not their responsibility." Jamal's mind raced. Was she serious? Could he trust her offer? Or was this some kind of trick? He glanced at Liam, still tucked under Olivia's arm. His small face streaked with tears, but visibly calmer now. Then he looked back at Olivia, searching her expression for any sign of insincerity. What he found instead was conviction. Slowly, deliberately, he extended his hand. "All right," he said simply. "I'll take it." Their handshake sealed the deal, firm and unspoken, marking the beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. In the weeks that followed, Jamal threw himself into his work, with the same relentless energy he'd always shown. Starting from the ground floor, he tackled every task with precision and care, quickly earning the respect of his co-workers. Meanwhile, Olivia kept a watchful eye on him, observing how naturally he took charge, how effortlessly he inspired others to follow his lead. It wasn't long before promotions came his way, first to senior crew member, then to site supervisor. Each new role brought fresh challenges, but Jamal faced them head-on, proving time and again that Olivia's instincts had been right. But while Jamal's professional life flourished, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Rumors swirled among the staff about why he'd been hired so suddenly, with some suggesting favoritism or worse. A few higher-ups questioned Olivia's judgment, accusing her of letting emotions cloud her decisions. Even Liam, innocent as he was, became a point of contention. Some joked that Jamal had earned his position by saving the boss's kid, a jab that stung more than he let on. Through it all, Jamal remained focused, refusing to let negativity derail him. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking a tightrope, balancing gratitude and ambition with the weight of expectations pressing down on him. Meanwhile, Olivia wrestled with her own demons. Hiring Jamal had been the right call, but it hadn't erased the guilt gnawing at her over Liam's ordeal. She poured herself into her work, throwing long hours into overseeing the project, determined to prove, to herself as much as anyone else, that she could balance her roles as both a leader and a mother. Yet late at night, when the office grew quiet and the hum of machinery faded, she found herself replaying that day over and over in her mind. What if Jamal hadn't been there? What if Liam hadn't been so brave? The thought sent chills down her spine, forcing her to confront uncomfortable truths about priorities and choices. As months passed, the bond between Jamal and Olivia evolved into something unexpected. Neither sought friendship nor camaraderie. They were too different, their lives too separate. But a mutual respect grew between them, rooted in shared experiences and unspoken understanding. When Olivia offered Jamal a management position, a real one, with benefits and stability, he accepted without hesitation. It was the opportunity he'd dreamed of, the chance to bring his mother to the city and give her the care she deserved. For the first time in years, hope burned bright within him, fueled by the knowledge that his hard work and sacrifices were finally paying off. Yet even as Jamal prepared to welcome his mother to their new life, questions lingered. Would she approve of the path he'd taken? Could he truly provide for her the way he'd always promised? And what about Olivia? Had her faith in him been misplaced? Or would he rise to meet her expectations? The answers loomed just beyond reach, teasing at the edges of possibility. With each passing day, the stakes grew higher, the tension thicker, until it felt like the entire world hung in the balance. Somewhere deep inside, Jamal knew the hardest part was still ahead. But he also knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. As Jamal settled into his new role, the weight of responsibility grew heavier. The management position came with its own set of challenges: longer hours, tougher decisions, and the constant pressure to prove he belonged. But it wasn't just about proving himself anymore. Now, he had a team counting on him, a mother depending on his success, and a young boy named Liam, who occasionally popped into his mind. Life felt fuller than ever before, but also more fragile. Every decision he made seemed to ripple outward, affecting people in ways he couldn't always predict. Then one evening, as Jamal was wrapping up paperwork at the site office, Olivia walked in unannounced. Her usual composed demeanor was replaced by something softer, almost vulnerable. She didn't say much at first, just stood there leaning against the door frame, her arms crossed. Finally, she broke the silence. "You've done well here," she said, her voice quieter than usual. Jamal looked up, surprised by the unexpected visit. "Thanks," he replied cautiously. He wasn't sure where this conversation was headed, but something told him it wasn't casual. Olivia stepped further into the room, closing the door behind her. "I need your help with something," she continued, her tone shifting slightly. It wasn't a request, so much as an acknowledgement that she trusted him enough to ask. Jamal leaned back in his chair, curiosity piqued. "What's going on?" he asked. Olivia hesitated for a moment, then explained. There was a crisis brewing. A major structural issue had been discovered in one of the buildings under construction. If not addressed immediately, it could jeopardize the entire project, potentially costing the company millions and putting workers' lives at risk. The problem required someone willing to step up, take charge, and make sacrifices. Someone like Jamal. The stakes were higher than anything Jamal had faced before. Fixing the issue meant working around the clock, coordinating with engineers, and making decisions that would either save the project or sink it entirely. Failure wasn't an option. It would mean losing everything he'd worked so hard to build. But deep down, Jamal knew this was what he'd been preparing for. This was the moment where all those years of struggle, determination, and resilience would pay off. Without hesitation, he nodded. "Tell me what I need to do." Over the next few weeks, Jamal poured every ounce of energy into solving the crisis. He barely slept, surviving on coffee and quick meals grabbed between meetings. His team rallied behind him, inspired by his relentless drive and clear vision. Even Liam noticed the change during their brief encounters. One afternoon, when Jamal stopped by Olivia's office to update her on progress, Liam peeked in, clutching a drawing he'd made. "Is my mum okay?" he asked innocently. Jamal smiled, kneeling down to his level. "Yeah, buddy, she's fine. And we're making sure everyone stays safe too." Liam beamed, handing over the picture. Stick figure version of Jamal, standing tall beside a towering building. For the first time in days, Jamal laughed, feeling a flicker of light amidst the chaos. Finally, after countless late nights and endless problem-solving sessions, the crisis was resolved. The building was stabilized, the project saved, and the team celebrated with a small gathering at the site. As Jamal stood among his colleagues, clinking glasses and sharing stories, he caught Olivia watching him from across the room. She raised her glass in a silent toast, a look of gratitude and respect in her eyes. In that moment, Jamal realized how far they'd both come since that fateful day outside the fast food restaurant. They weren't just employer and employee anymore. They were partners in a shared mission, bound by trust and mutual admiration. Weeks later, Jamal received a call from Olivia asking him to meet her at her office. When he arrived, she handed him a folder containing documents for a leadership program designed to groom executives within the company. "You've earned this," she said firmly, "but don't think I'm doing you any favors. You'll have to work harder than anyone else. Are you ready?" Jamal stared at the folder, stunned. This wasn't just another promotion. It was a chance to shape the future of the company, to leave a legacy. After a long pause, he nodded. "I'm ready." With each passing year, Jamal rose through the ranks, eventually becoming one of the company's most respected leaders. Along the way, he never forgot why he started, or the people who helped him get there. Whenever he passed by the construction site where it all began, he thought about Liam, whose small act of trust had set everything in motion. He thought about Olivia, who saw potential in him when others might have overlooked it. And he thought about his mother, whose love and sacrifices gave him the strength to keep going. One day while visiting his mother, now comfortably settled in their apartment, Jamal found himself reflecting on how life had changed. She sat knitting by the window, humming softly to herself. "You did good, baby," she said, without looking up. "Your daddy would be proud." Jamal smiled, sitting beside her. "We did good, Mama," he corrected gently. "All of us." In the end, Jamal's journey was about more than ambition or survival. It was about connection, about stepping up when no one else would, about finding family in unexpected places, and about realizing that true success isn't measured by titles or wealth, but by the impact we have on others. As he looked out the window at the city skyline, now dotted with buildings he'd helped create, Jamal felt a profound sense of peace. He had come a long way from the man who once stood torn and uncertain outside a construction site. And yet, in many ways, he was still the same, still fighting, still believing, still hoping, because sometimes all it takes is one leap of faith to change everything.